In the previous video, we just finished looking at most of the older historic languages when we first get the textual attestation from about the year 700. For about a 400-year period, say 700 to 1100, generally constitutes one time chunk. Obviously, this is all retrospective, that we can sort of look at and study as a unity. And so I drew this red line to separate the older languages from, well, certainly in the Western category, the old from the middle languages. About the year 1100, some changes start to take place, or enough changes have taken place that we can look at a continuum of a language and say, well, at either end of the scale, it's not quite the same. So we need to draw some differentiation here to help us study it. In the case of Norse, the North Germanic languages, it's precisely around this time, about the year 1000 or 1100, that what we have called Common Norse separates into Eastern and Western Norse. They're not quite, they're more different from each other at this time than they were beforehand. And then if we make another 400-year time frame for this, to about the year 1500, in the latter half of this, from about the year 1300, we get East Norse separating into what's going to become Swedish and Danish, and also Gutnish, as we looked in, is around at this point. And West Norse is going to go and become what we call generally Old Norse. This is the high time of that literary language, and this is going to become Icelandic. English kind of has the most exciting history in this time, moving into the Low Germanic languages, Low West Germanic languages. English is highly impacted by the Norman invasion of 1066 and submerged under French for about 200 years before it emerges as a literary language, again in its own right. Frisian or Frisian is sort of different nomenclature from the rest of these. I drew a line going back into the old period to show that it obviously did not come out of nowhere, but it is only in this time, in the latter part of this sort of chunk of time here, this high medieval time, that we start to get texts in this language, and so that's called Old Frisian. And there are not very many of these, and they're legal texts. They're not terribly interesting. That's why I've never really explored them myself and didn't make a separate video of them. But we get attestation of this language from about this time. I did one for Middle Dutch, because it's in this time that this is a flourishing literary language as well. And I didn't do a video for Middle Low German, but I did mention, and I'll mention again now, that in this time period, this was a very important language. It was not a literary language, and that's my interest. That's why I've never really explored it. It was a commercial language, a business language. There was something called the Hanseatic League of primarily North Germanic states in this time period that did trade and commerce throughout the Baltic and North Seas. And so both for English and for the Scandinavian languages, when we find German or Germanic loan words at this time, and there are lots of them, they're coming from this, from Middle Low German, more than from any other place. So that's the Low West Germanic branch. And then when we move back into High German, we still find the same basic situation. For Middle High German now, it's Alemannic and Bavarian and Franconian that supply the majority of the literary text, as we looked at in the video that I made for Middle High German. And these are not going to become the basis for modern High German. So what we're seeing throughout most of the languages in this time period, and then moving on into modern times, German and Icelandic are the exceptions. These two languages are every bit as much as highly inflecting today as ever they were. But in the main, there's a tendency in Germanic languages over the course of their history to, how shall I say this, simplify their grammar, to go from being highly complex, highly inflected languages to becoming less inflected. In the extreme case of English and perhaps Afrikaans, they're going almost in the direction of becoming a different kind of grammatical category, isolating languages rather than inflecting languages altogether. That is a general trend of the Germanic languages to become grammatically simpler over time. So these medieval languages compared to these older languages are going to somehow be a little bit simplified grammatically. That trend, here now we come to this blue line that I drew about the year 1500, and this is less of an arbitrary line than the red line. This represents some very real changes that are going through society, and particularly through language. What happens around this time period to set off medieval languages from early modern languages? Well, before this time period, there were, in the first place, there were no, this is when the time period when modern nation states, as we know them today, start to form, start to come into being. And so in modern nation states, it's the norm for one dialect among the many dialects in the territory, usually the dialect of the capital city or the royal seat, to be chosen as a standard dialect, and then the others become sort of disadvantaged from this factor. Prior to this, in this time period, everybody just wrote as they spoke. There was no concept of one dialect being superior to another. But after this time period, because of this selection, that concept does come into being. Likewise, reinforcing that and going hand in hand with that and pushing that is, right around this time, the invention and dissemination of the printing press. Through this time, everything you found was written by hand by a scribe. After this time, things were published en masse. So you had the same text, usually in the standard dialect, going out to the population as a whole. So these two factors really mark the early modern languages and start to begin to set them off and separate them from the medieval period, apart from just general trends in grammar and in lexicography. And then this period, this time period, early modern times, this is, I'm talking about 1500, 1600, when we have the printing press and the formation of nation states impacting the development of a standard language. And then this mindset sort of becomes more and more crystallized later on in this time period. So in the period of the Enlightenment in the 17th and 18th centuries, you get, in many cases, the formation of actual language academies, people deciding what's right and what's wrong. And even in languages like English that never quite get that, you still get, well, dictionaries for the first time coming into being. Before this time, there were no monolingual dictionaries. There was no concept of a right and a wrong way to spell something. And so you can find in early texts from this, Shakespeare is a paradigmatic example, you can find on any one page of Shakespeare that he sometimes spells the same word in 2 or maybe even 3 different ways. And there was no notion that there was anything strange or funny or wrong or incorrect about that. You just spelled as you spoke in your natural spoken dialect. Whereas in the latter part of this time period, you're going to start to get the notion of fixing a language or regulating a language or deciding that something is correct and standardized. So this is the overall change that's going to start happening in this early modern period. I will start to look at the North Germanic languages here. We get early New Swedish coming into, continuing its course of development. Gutnish, which was a separate language, before that becomes more and more assimilated to it and more a dialect of it. Danish and Swedish continue to differentiate. Danish and Norwegian are unified in one kingdom, so they start to impact, and I'm out of time here.